Let's now talk about benefit issuance. So once you have your application, your free and reduced application with parents, then you issue a benefit to each child and to each application. So what you do is you have a roster, and a lot of times your roster is going to print out from your system. All this information that you do put into your system is considered confidential. The roster that you do have will have your eligibility date, the date the application was approved, the withdrawal date, the date that that child dropped, date of change in eligibility status, if that is applicable. If your program, if your computer software is the one that approves your application agreement, and you don't fill out the bottom part of the application agreement because your computer system is the one that approves it. If that is the case, then at the end of every single month, you are to print your rosters and you have to sign it on a monthly basis. When you sign that roster, because you did not approve it by hand, you are signing it stating that all the applications were approved correctly. Now, if you are a large district and you have lots of pages of rosters, some hints that I gave my schools is maybe instead of printing out the entire roster is you can save them in a PDF file and then just print out the last page and sign each of the last pages. But if your computer system is the one that approves all your applications, you do not approve them by hand, because if you do it by hand, you're supposed to sign the bottom of the application showing that you approved it. That again, you have to keep your rosters every month and you're signing and dating it, stating that all the applications were approved correctly. That once you entered them into their computer, they were all approved correctly. So just don't forget to do that if your computer system is the one that approves your application. If you do need to share any eligibility information, we have some information in the eligibility section of the manual. It must be a legitimate need to know basis. Access to data is limited to authorized officials in the district, and it cannot be made available to all school officials. There are certain situations where you do have to get approval from the parent, and if you do go to the eligibility section, there's a disclosure of free and reduced price information agreement. It's on page 68 and 70, again, of the eligibility manual, that you can have parents fill out and send that back to give permission to give their information. Now, again, some people in your district, they can have access to it. Sometimes your school counselor, they don't really need to know if they're free, reduced, or paid. They just need to know if they do qualify for any type of a benefit, either free or reduced for testing purposes. But you're not giving, but if you do need other information and it's not pertinent, then you do need to make sure that you're just not giving out information that you don't need to be giving out. Another thing is overt identification. It's really, really important that anytime a child is going through the line or at any point in a school district, that nobody knows what their status is, if they're free, reduced, or paid. So again, any action resulting in recognition of eligibility. So when distributed to individual households, applications not required to parents of directly certified students. You cannot publicize the names. You can't have special seating or eating times, food items, or color of meal tickets. So you can't have like all the free kids have red meal tickets, all the reduced kids have blue, and all the paid have white. You can't have any type of indication like, oh, well, the free kids eat at 11, all the reduced kids eat at 11:30, and the paid kids eat at 12. You cannot require labor for meals, and you cannot limit choices based on their reimbursable meal type. Now you do need to have multiple prepayment systems that are encouraged. They can do it in the line, in the office, and online. You cannot require prepayment, but you can allow for people to prepay. That can't be your only form as prepayment. And you do always have to make sure that a child is allowed to pay in the line. Also, something that you can't do is say you have a family and they owe $50 and they bring you, and you do have your charge policy and they can't charge over 25, but if they bring you, say, $30, you have to let them eat that day. They can use the rest for the back payment, but if they bring you money, even if they just brought you money for the meal for that day, you have to let them eat. You can't say, no, you have charges and this will go toward your charge account. If they give you money for food that day, you have to let them eat a meal that day. Now, another big process that we have is what we call verification. And verification, what you're doing is you're verifying a certain percentage of applications that you got for that school year. You do have to start verification on October 1st, and the entire process has to be over by November 15th. Now, we will be having two types of 1 hour courses, Zoom courses on verification. We'll have one on the verification process, and then we have a verification report. So when it does come time closer to verification, look out for those. So since the verification process starts on October 1st, we will be doing it probably the last week of September. And then I believe the report is due in December. So we'll be doing that verification report, 1 hour Zoom course in November. Now, once we do the Zoom, we will also be putting this in OSDE Connect as well. So if you missed the verification process or the verification report courses, you can take the 1 hour course on OSDE Connect and get your 1 hour credit for professional development. And that way you do know how to do the processes if you're new, but not just that, but verification is only one time per year. And you did do it last year if you received applications, but it may have been a couple of years, or you could be new to the entire process. So verification of eligibility. Before any verification activities can begin, the district must provide a free phone number that households can call for assistance. And luckily now with cell phones and with our area codes, a lot of times you will be providing a free phone number based on where you're at. I remember back when I was younger in school that the school that I attended, we could only call one town free of collect. So if anybody lived outside of that town, it was a collect call, or it was a long distance call. We don't have that much anymore with cell phones and the way they have done things now. But you do have to be able that people can contact you for free. You do have to ensure that initial determination is reviewed for accuracy by the individual other than the person who determined the application. So as mentioned before, is on the back side of the application, you have the determining official. That is the person that approved the application, or I also suggest the person write their name and the date that they put it into the computer system if your computer system is the one that does approve the application. You have to have somebody other than the person that determined what the benefit was. You have to have somebody else, and it's only on verified. So however many you have to pull for verification, have somebody else look at them and confirm that you did approve it correctly. So, and then they would sign that second confirming official of the person that confirmed that yes, you did, or no, you did not approve that application correctly. Now, you can contact your program specialist if your computer system is the one that does approve your application. You can contact your program specialist to waive the confirmation review, but you have to do this every year. I'm going to be very honest with you, even when I was in the field, talking to people that are in the field, really nobody waives this if you ask. And the reason why is we have seen issues where the computer program was faulty, or like maybe the wrong information was entered in, either on the part that approves it, or even you may have accidentally just typed in something wrong, which can happen. So we always do think that you need to have somebody else just look at the verified applications just to make sure that they were approved correctly. And then that person does need to sign the confirming official line. If the eligibility determined was correct, meaning it was approved correctly, then you just go ahead and move on with verification. If you pull an application for verification and it comes out that it was not approved correctly, then you do need to go to the eligibility section on page E40 and use the instructions there, and then when to send the adverse action notice to the household. So go and look at the process. If you have an application that you did approve for verification, but you did not approve it correctly, it may not be verified any longer. So then you go to E40 to see the steps that you need to do in case that is to happen. There are certain people that are exempt from verification. So if you're exempt from verification, it's students that qualify through direct cert. You do not directly verify, you do not verify them. If you have any children that are on the homeless migrant runaway list, they do not get verified. If you have any kids in a federally funded Head Start or Even Start program, they do not get verified. those students are taken out of the verification process. And again, we just wanted to say that if you have a head start, that meals can be claimed for 3-year-olds without disabilities, but they cannot be counted in your eligibles. If you do have any students residing in RCCIs, they're not day students, then they're also exempt. If you have a provision, if you're provision 2, 3, or CEP, you didn't, and you're not in your base year, you did not take applications, you would not do verification because you have no applications to verify. And then all districts, it doesn't matter if you are provision or CEP, you do have to fill out the verification report. There'll be most of it, provision schools don't have to fill out, but everybody does still have to fill out at least one part of the sections in the verification report. So everybody still has to do the verification report, but not everybody does have to verify. So verification requirements is you take all your applications selected that are based on the number of new current year applications on file. So let's say on October 1st, you have, I'm making up numbers, 100 approved applications. So you do not use any carryover applications. They are not included in verification. You cannot verify more or less than the sample size that you chose. And the entire verification process, again, must be completed by November 15th. You can start it on October 1st. I have some schools, because of the direct certification list, that they may not start it till October 2nd or 3rd, because you may pull in people from the direct certification list and they show up in October. And again, directly verified or directly certified children are not pulled for verification. So it could pull, maybe you had 3 applications with 5 kids that were on those applications, and on October 2nd, they show up on your direct certification report. So you can take those applications out if you choose, because you do not verify directly certified children. Now, there are 3 methods for verification. Most will use the standard sample size. We also have what's called alternate 1, which is random, and alternate 2 that are focused. Now, the reason why most do the standard sample size is because you do have to have so many every year that you do verification. If you don't have very good responses from your family, then you're always required to do standard sample. But if you do have really good responses from families, they just respond to your verification, then you can do one of the alternates, which is 1 or 2. But the standard sample size is 3% of all your free and reduced price applications are on file as of October 1. So if you have 100 applications on file as of October 1, you verify, I believe, 1. I'm going to do the math. 100 times 0.03, and it's 3. So it depends upon the number of free and reduced applications you have on file. You must pull from what we call error-prone applications. Now I'm going to talk more about what error-prone applications are. If you use a system, your system should pull, they usually always pull from error-prone applications first. Now I will tell you, if you use a computer system, you really do need to kind of hand count how many applications you have on files of October 1, because we've had a lot of computer systems that they do not pull the correct percentage. So maybe you did have 100 applications on file and they pull 5 and not the 3. So you do need to double check your system to make sure it does pull the correct amount, because you are not allowed to approve more or less than the amount for verification. If you say you have to pull the 3 applications and you only have 1 that is error prone, the rest of the applications can just be selected randomly. You are allowed to decline up to 5% of verification sample and replace it with another error prone application. And there could be times that, and we'll talk about why and when you might want to decline. It could be a hardship in the family. I was at a school district one year, and during the verification process, one of the parents passed away. So you may not want to verify when they're going through a grieving process. So there may be times that you would go ahead and decline an application that was pulled for verification. Now with the standard sample size example, we have it right here. We do give you in the handouts a copy of the error-prone scale. So an error-prone scale is the annual incomes of within 1,200 below the annual income scale. The monthly income is within $100 below the monthly scale, and you can pull the error-prone, we call it the error-prone eligibility scale. We give that to you. So if you do it by hand, you can pull them. I will say, you kind of know when it's an error prone, because when you're approving applications, you're like, man, they barely made reduced. So flag those, or we have a lot of people that will keep them in a separate folder. So examples of error prone for this year is if you have a family of 4 and they have an application, and in that application, they say they make between $34,875 and $36,075 for free benefits. That's an example of error prone. It just means they're very, very close to the line of being free or reduced. Or if you have a family of 4 and their monthly income is $4,279 and it's in between that and $4,179. Like a lot of times you'll look and be like, man, they were really close to not making it. And when you did that, most of the time they're going to be error prone. So that is the standard, is the 3% from error prone first. If you don't have enough error prone, then you just select randomly. Now, we do have a couple of alternates, and it depends upon the response rate from parents if you can do an alternate sample size. If you do alternate 1, which is random, it's still 3% or 3,000 approved applications as of October 1st. So most of you are all going to be doing the 3%. You do whatever is less. And you just pull randomly. It doesn't matter what it is. It does not have to be error prone. You just pull 3 applications. You may also use alternate 2, which is called focus sample size. Now with this one, what the most case scenario is you take all of your applications on October 1, and instead of doing 3%, you do 1% of applications that are error prone. And then you do 0.5% or 0.5% of applications approved of October 1st that have a case number. So they have a case number on the application, but they did not show up in your direct certification list. So instead of doing 3%, you're actually doing 1.5%. So again, you could want to do an alternate sample size or alternate focused. I did have some schools, and an example of when you can do the alternate is if you have, they call it a non-response rate of less than 20% from the previous school year. But the better way to kind of look at that is if you have 80% of response from your applications in the previous year, then you can do either the alternate 1 or the alternate 2. So we do have a form that you need to keep on file to indicate how many responded. And when we mean respond, let's say you have a family and you picked them for verification and the application was free. But then when you did verification, they responded to you. They called you and said, I don't make that amount, so you changed it. Or they sent you a letter. Maybe they even sent you what they make and they don't make that amount, and you change them from free to paid. It doesn't matter that you had to change the application. It just mattered that they responded to your verification request, and it could be a response by email, by phone. So they had to respond to you. That's what a response rate is. So even if you have to change the application, as long as they responded to your request, then you can do an alternate 1 or an alternate 2. Now, one reason you may want to do that is I was at a school district, and this is a lot of schools in Oklahoma, is it's a very small district, and they only had to pull 1 application for verification. Well, at this district, they pulled the same application because they only had 1 or 2 error-prone applications at their district. So every year or every other year, the same people are getting pulled for verification because they're the only one that's error-prone. So if that keeps happening and every year they respond, you do not have to use that one. You can use the alternate 1 and just pull another random application. So that way you're not always pulling the same families. Now, we did talk that you can do a substitution where you can decline up to 5% of your pool. So let's just say you have to do 5 applications. So if you multiply that by 5%, that gives 0.25. So you can round that up. So that means out of the 5 applications that were pulled for verification, you can replace 1 if you need to. Again, a reason for declining is if a district believes the household would be unable to satisfactorily respond to the verification request. Again, I've seen it where a member of the household passed away during the verification process or shortly before it. You may have other situations, maybe they don't speak English, and you at the time the person that at your district that speaks is out sick. So there may be a reason why they may not respond. In that case, you do need to make sure you make documentation, and you can decline up to 5%. If it is below the 1, then you can round up, and you can do at least 1 application. You do have to give notification of verification. You have to use our form. It is on page E74 through 75 in the eligibility document. And then this form must be used when notifying families of verification. Again, most of our forms are required. You have to use our forms. You can also do what's called direct verification. So we have what's called direct certification is when you go to the WAVE or if you go to the tribe. It's a lot of the same type of a thing, but what direct verification is say you're verifying. Maybe you end up doing the alternate 2 where you can pull a case number, or maybe you're doing the random and you do have an application with a household that has a case number on there, but they did not show up on the direct cert list. What you can do is for direct verification is, again, you contact the state agency or that tribe. And in this case, let's just say they're getting SNAP benefits. So you contact DHS and you contact them and ask them, is this person still getting the benefit? So when you do direct verification, the good thing about direct verification, it gives you 2 chances of 2 responses. So either the family can respond or the state agency can respond. So direct verification, again, is contacting the state agency or the tribe directly to verify the benefit. Again, we highly do encourage it because it does give you 2 ways of getting a response, not just one. But direct certification is just monthly. We get the thing from DHS or you contact the tribe. Direct verification is when you are verifying that application and you are going directly to the state agency. There is a question in the verification report regarding this, and a lot of people get very confused between direct verification and direct certification. So just make sure you answer that correctly. Now, the letter that you would use for direct certification and direct verification are the same form. It is on page E76 and E77 in the eligibility section because they are both requesting the same information. It's just one is used for verification purposes. The other one is just to make sure that that child receives benefit so they can get that benefit for the entire year. Again, if you're doing verification and you pull the direct certification list, and in the time that you do verification, you are trying to contact the family, this child shows up on the direct certification list. At that point, you can say that that child was directly verified. You would just print that out, the direct certification information, and just attach it to the application because you did get information that they do receive the benefit through the direct certification list. So, and it does happen quite a bit. We have seen it where someone gets pulled for they get pulled for verification and then they don't show up on the direct certification list. So once they show up there, you don't really need to hear anything from the household because you did get validation that they are, we call it direct verification. You got something directly from DHS stating that yes, they do get benefits. So you do need to follow up. If a family does not respond the first time, you do have to do at least one follow-up. So if a household, again, if they don't respond to your verification notice, you have to make at least one additional contact. The notification can be done by email, over the phone, or a letter. Some districts choose to. You are allowed to do verification through a contract with a third party to assist with the follow-up if you choose. And we've had some bigger schools that have done that because they do have to verify so many. And the process is very short. It's only 1.5 months. So then we have adverse action due to verification. So you have to have written 10 calendar days verification results or adverse action notice, and it has to include the change in the eligibility status, the reason for the change. You have to give them a right to appeal, the right to the appeal procedures, and the right to reapply for benefits. So if you have a family, and let's say you have a family that was free or reduced, and you sent them a letter for verification and they never responded to you. So once they don't respond to you on the 2 attempts that you did, then they will go to a paid. If they want to have additional benefits, they may reapply, but for that year, because they were pulled for verification, they are required to send in the verification documentation before you can approve them for free or reduced. Now, when it comes to the next year, you don't have to have the supporting documentation unless they get pulled for verification again. But if they want to reapply, so say you make them paid because they did not send you information for verification, and then on December 15th, they send you another application showing that they're free, again, you have to have documentation to verify because they were pulled for verification. Benefits must continue until the decision concerning the appeal has been made by the hearing official. The hearing official is listed in your application and agreement. So if someone does challenge what they have, their eligibility status, then they do have the right to appeal. And so let's say they were free and you're saying that they're paid and they are appealing that, then you do have to give them the free benefit until the hearing official makes, once they hear it, until they make their appeal, it's been done, then they can still get that benefit until the appeal is over. Completion of verification. So you record all your verification activity, including all dates. We do have to see the whole process. It is a part of the administrative review. Changes resulting from verification must be extended to all children in the household. So, if one person on there, they didn't respond, then all those kids, if there were 5 kids on there, then they would all go from free to paid or however, whatever it changes to. The verification process must be completed by November 15th. So even if you give 10 calendar days, that'd be November 5th, that you send them everybody a letter saying, okay, verification is done, you have 10 days, then you really are kind of ending the process on November 5th because you have to give them 10 days before you change their status in the program, in your computer software program or in the roster. So if you have kids that are free, and they did not submit anything to you, so you're saying, hey, you're going from free to paid now, you do need to send that letter to them by November 5th, but then you would go in 10 days later to change their status. So that would be done by November 15th. You can't send them the letter on November 15th because you still have to wait those 10 days. So then you're going over your verification process dates. Again, you do have to do the verification summary report. You do have to complete section 5 on the type of verification. So again, it doesn't matter if you're provision or not provision, everybody has to fill out the verification report. So again, we can't stress it enough, keep all of your verification documentation. Household reapplication after reduction or termination of benefits. Again, they must have verification of income or proof of categorically eligibility. So again, if someone chooses not to give you any information during verification and they want to reapply, they have to give you documentation. A household, again, can reapply at any time, but because they were pulled for verification this year, they do have to give you the documentation showing what they have to show you that, yes, they are free and why. Anybody can do verification for cause. It does have to be outside of your verification pool. So let's say you had 100 applications and you pulled the 3%, you did the standard, and then you have 2 applications that you want to verify for cause because you don't believe they gave you the correct information, then that would be, you would verify 5 in that case because it cannot be into your verification pool. So you can verify for cause at any time, just after the approval of the application. Any application can be pulled for the for cause verification if you have reason to believe the application gives information that is invalid. And then it does need to be handled without discrimination, harassment in the selection. So we really tell our schools to be very cautious if you want to verify for cause, because someone might think that you are doing this out of discrimination. And so we just want you to be very cautious if you choose to do this. My biggest thing for me that I would tell you to do is, before you do this, is just contact your program specialist or your consultant and talk to them about it to see if you should do it or not. We just don't want any replications coming from you verifying for cause. And that is the verification process.